Part 2, Chapter 4 of The Speaking Voice, Principles of Training, Simplified and Condensed by Katherine Jewell Everts. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Part 2, Chapter 4, Study in Tone Colour. And now we must turn to our last point of discussion, tone colour. What is the nature of this element of our vocabulary, this Klangfarbe, this timbre? Upon what does it depend? You will say, it is a property of the voice depending upon the form of the vibrations which produce the tone. True! And physiologically the form of the vibrations depends upon the condition of the entire vocal apparatus. Tone colour, then, is a modulation of resonance. But what concerns us is the fact that it is an emotional modulation of resonance. What concerns us is the fact that, as a change of thought instantly registers itself in a change of pitch, so a change of emotion instantly produces a change in the colour of the tone, if the voice is a free instrument. And so, as before, I want you not to think of the physiological aspect, but to yield to the emotion, noting the character of the resultant tone, regardless of what has happened in the larynx to produce that result. As Browning affords us the best material for our study in change of pitch, so the poems of Sidney Lanier offer to the voice the richest field for exercise in tone colour. Musician and poet in one, Lanier's peculiar charm lies in his unerring choice of words, which suggest in their sound, when rightly voiced, the atmosphere of the scene he is painting. Lanier uses words as Corot uses colours. This gives the voice its opportunity to bring out by subtle variations in timbre the variations in light and shade of an atmosphere. To read aloud sympathetically once a day Lanier's The Symphony is the best possible way to develop simultaneously all the elements of a vocal vocabulary. We shall use this poem today as a text for our study in tone colour. Let us omit the message of the violins and heavier strings, and take the passage beginning with the interlude upon which the flute voice breaks. But presently a velvet flute note fell down pleasantly upon the bosom of that harmony, and sailed incessantly, as if a petal from a wild rose blown had fluttered down upon that pool of tone, and boatwise dropped o'er the convex side, and floated down the glassy tide, and clarified and glorified the solemn spaces where the shadows bide. From the warm concave of that fluted note, somewhat half song, half odour forth did float, as if a rose might somehow be a throat. What an ideal for tone colour! Dare we think to make it ours? We must. We must adopt it with confidence of attainment. Let me quote a little further. When Nature from her far-off glen flutes her soft messages to men, the flute can say them o'er again. Yea, Nature, singing sweet and lone, breathes through life's strident polyphone the flute voice in the world of tone. Read this passage aloud as a mere statement of fact, employing a matter-of-fact tone. Grey in colour, is it not? Now let your voice take the colour Lanier has blended for you. Let your tone, like a thing half song, half odour, float forth on these words, and linger as only a perfume can about the thought. Now let the tone change in colour to clarify and glorify the following message from the flute. The extracts are from Mr. Sidney Lanier's volume of poems, published by Charles Scribner's Sons. Sweet friends, man's love ascends to finer and diviner ends than man's mere thought e'er comprehends. I cannot, for lack of space, reprint the whole flute message, but you will get the poem if you have it not, and voice every word of it, I am sure. Here are some of the most telling lines for our present purpose. I speak for each no-tongued tree that spring by spring doth nobler be, and dumbly and most wistfully his mighty prayerful arms outspreads above men's oft unheeding heads, and his big blessing downward sheds. I speak for all shaped blooms and leaves, lichens on stones and moss on eaves, grasses and grains in ranks and sheaves, broad fronded ferns and keen-leaved canes, and briery mazes bounding lanes, and marsh plants thirsty cupped for rains, and milky stems and sugary veins, for every long-armed woman vine that round a piteous tree does twine, for passionate odours, and divine pistils, and petals crystalline. All tree sounds, rustlings of pine cones, wind sighings, doves' melodious moans, and night's unearthly undertones. All placid lakes and waveless deeps, all cool reposing mountain steeps, vale calms and tranquil lotus sleeps, yea, all fair forms and sounds and lights and warmths and mysteries and mights of nature's utmost depths and heights, these doth my timid tongue present, their mouthpiece and leal instrument and servant, all love eloquent. You see, to voice this message, a mood born of all the warmths and mysteries and mights of nature's utmost depths and heights, must take possession of you, and you must yield your instrument to the expression of that mood. Then watch, watch, watch the colour of the tone change, as the voice, starting with the clear flute note, follows sympathetically the varying phases of nature's face, which the poet has so sympathetically painted. And now, after a thrilling calm, the flute yields its place to a sister instrument, and the tone must change its timbre to the reed note of the clarionet. In the melting message of that instrument, we find two passages which afford the voice chance for a most vivid contrast in colour. Beginning with the line, "Now comes a suitor with sharp prying eye," read the two descriptions which follow, lending your voice to the atmosphere of each. Says, "Here, you lady, if you'll sell, I'll buy. Come, heart for heart, a trade. What, weeping? Why?" "Shame on such wooer's dapper mercery! I would my lover, kneeling at my feet, in humble manliness should cry, 'Oh, sweet!' I know not if thy heart my heart will greet. I ask not if thy love my love can meet. Whate'er thy worshipful soft tongue shall say, I'll kiss thine answer, be it yea or nay. I do but know I love thee, and I pray to be thy knight until my dying day." The first two lines, which set forth a suit in terms of trade, demand a hard, calculating tone, suggestive of large silver dollars. Call this colour dull steel grey. This tone flashes out for a moment in the white indignation of the third line, softens and warms with the next two lines, then grows and glows until it reaches a crimson radiance in the last two lines. Try it. And now, with heartsome voice of mellow scorn, let us sound the message of the bold straightforward horn. "Now comfort thee," said he, "fair lady, For God shall right thy grievous wrong, and man shall sing thee a true love song, voiced in act his whole life long, yea, all thy sweet life long, fair lady. Where's he that craftily hath said the day of chivalry is dead? I'll prove that lie upon his head, or I will die instead, fair lady. Now by each knight that e'er hath prayed to fight like a man and love like a maid, since Pembroke's life as Pembroke's blade i' the scabbard death was laid, I dare avouch my faith is bright that God doth right and God hath might, nor time hath changed his hair to white, nor his dear love to spite, fair lady. I doubt no doubts. I strive and shrive my clay, and fight my fight in the patient modern way, for true love and for thee, ah me, and pray to be thy knight until my dying day, fair lady. Made end that knightly horn, and spurred away into the thick of the melodious fray. Remember, your key is set for you. The colour of the tone is plainly chosen for you by Mr. Lanier. Not red nor yellow, but a blending of the two. Orange, is it not? Will not an orange tone give us the feeling of heartsome confidence behind and through the mellow scorn of the knight's message? Try it. Let the two primary colours, red and yellow, enter in varying degrees, according to, or following, the emotional variation in the thought, as the knight or the lover dominates in the message. In the first 7 lines, the tone glows with the love radiance, and the orange deepens toward red. With the next 5 lines, the lover yields to the knight, and the tone flashes forth a golden, keen-edged sword. With the 13th line, the tone begins in the orange on "Now by each knight that e'er hath prayed," flashes into yellow in "To fight like a man," softens and deepens toward red in "And love like a maid," and returns to the orange to finish the horn motive. Next in this poem, which affords such a wonderful study for tone colour, we have the hautboy's message. The colour is mixed and laid on the palette ready for use as before, with the introductory lines: "And then the hautboy played and smiled, and sang like any large-eyed child, cool-hearted and all undefiled." Don't let the words large-eyed child mislead you. Don't, I beseech you, make the mistake of adopting the Little Orphan Annie tone, with which the elocutionist too often insults the pure treble of a child's undefiled instrument. That is the keynote to us for our choice of colour. Cool-hearted and all undefiled. Almost a white tone, is it not? With a little of the blue of the June sky? Try it. Let the blue be visibly present in the first 3 lines. "Huge trade," he said, "would thou wouldst lift me on thy head, and run where'er my finger led," turning to pure white in the next 3 lines. "Once said a man, and wise was he, never shalt thou the heavens see, save as a little child thou be." The last voice comes from the ancient wise bassoons. Again there is danger. Do not, oh, do not fall afoul of the conventional old man's quavering tone. There is nothing conventional about these weird, greybeard old harpers sitting on the high sea dunes, chanting runes. The last words of these introductory lines safeguard us: chanted runes. There is only one colour of tone in which to chant runes. Grey, is it not? Yes, but a silver grey. Not the steel grey of the clarionet when she became for the moment a commercial lover. Then in the silver grey tone of the philosopher, voice this last motive: bright waved gain, grey waved loss, the sea of all doth lash and toss, one wave forward and one across, but now 'twas trough, now 'tis crest, and worst doth foam and flash to best, and curst to blest. The importance of a right use of tone colour in vocal interpretation was impressed upon a Browning class last winter. We were reading the dramatic lyrics. The poem for the hour was Meeting at Night. The tone with which the first student attacked this exquisite love lyric was so business-like, so matter-of-fact, so utterly out of key, that we who listened saw not the lover hastening to his beloved, but a real estate agent out to buy a farm. The grey sea, the long black land, the yellow half-moon large and low, the startled little waves that creep in fiery ringlets from their sleep, the pushing prow of the boat quenched in the slushy sand, the warm sea-scented beach, and the 3 fields, all assumed a merely commercial value. They were interesting exactly as would be a catalogue of properties in a deed of real estate. If you are not a very intense member of a Browning Society, you will, I think, enjoy the test of tone colour involved in reading this poem from the contrasted standpoints of the business man and the lover. Of course, in the first instance, you must stop where I, in desperation, stopped the student, on the words "a farm appears," for I defy any one to read the last 2 lines in a grey, matter-of-fact tone. As was the case in our consideration of inflection, so in this study of tone colour there is an embarrassment of rich material for the exercise of this element. Lanier's Sunrise and Corn, Browning's prologue to the 2 poets of Croisic, with a vivid contrast of colour in each verse, Swinburne's almost every line, Dante Gabriel Rossetti, Wordsworth, Keats, Tennyson, but why enumerate? All the colourists among the poets will reward your search of a text for the development of timbre. For a final brief study of the 3 elements we aim to acquire, with especial emphasis in thought upon the last one, let us take this prologue to the 2 poets of Croisic, with its colour contrast in each verse. Such a starved bank of moss, till, that May morn, blue ran the flash across, violets were born. Sky, what a scowl of cloud, till, near and far, ray on ray split the shroud, splendid a star. World, how it walled about life with disgrace, till God's own smile came out, that was thy face. The vocal treatment of the first 2 verses will be very much alike. The voice starts in minor key, a grey monotone, in harmony with the absence of colour in the bare bank of dull moss. The inflection of the word starved must emphasize the greyness. It must be a dull push of the tone on the first syllable, with little if any lift above the level of the low pitch on which the whole line is spoken. With a swift, salient, rising inflection on the opening word of the second line, an inflection which creates expectancy of change, the voice lifts the thought out of the minor into the major key. Because pause has no direct effect upon the voice, I have not before mentioned it, although it is a most vital element of vocal expression. But I must call your attention to its significance here by simply asking you to indulge in it. Stop after uttering the word till, and study the effect of the pause. It is the pause, quite as much as the inflection, you see, which induces the expectant attitude you desire to create in the mind of your auditor. With the next 3 words, That May morn, the tone takes on a bit of the warmth of early summer. A lingering cadence on the word May will help the suggestion. With the third line the voice begins to shine. I know no other way to express it. The inflections are swift and straight, but not staccato, because they must suggest a growth, not a burst of colour. The tone on which the words are born must be continuous. It must not be broken off definitely with each word, as is to prove most effective, we shall find, in handling the third line of the second verse. The fourth line brings the full, glowing, radiant tone on the first word. Violets. This tone must be held in full volume on the last two words. The law for beautiful speech must be observed here. But where should it not be observed? Let us recall the law. Beautiful speech depends upon openness of vowels and definiteness of consonants. The vowels give volume to a word, the consonants form. Slur your consonants and squeeze your vowels in the three words of this line, violets were born, and what becomes of this miracle of spring? The voicing of the second verse is very like that of the first. The opening line demands the same grey monotone. But the three words sky, scowl, and cloud, if clear-cut in utterance as they should be, will break the level of the line more than the single word starved in the first line of the first verse can do, or was meant to do. There is the same swift lift of the voice in the opening word of the second line, the same change to the major key, the same growing glow in the tone on the third line, and the same radiant outburst of colour sustained through the last line. The only difference lies in the suffusion of radiance in the tone to suggest the coming of colour to the bank in the first verse, and the outburst of radiance to suggest the sudden splitting of the clouds and the star's swift birth in the second verse. With the emotional change of thought in the last verse, from a travail and birth in nature to a human soul's struggle and rebirth, the deepening colour which creeps into the tone indicates the entrance of personal passion. The key does not change. The inflections are still and straight. The tone simply deepens and glows in the last two lines, as a prayerful ecstasy possesses the one who reads. Mr. William James tells us that we learn to swim in winter and skate in summer. The principle underlying this statement is of immense comfort, as I have said, in approaching a class in vocal expression. The hope of satisfying results is fostered by the knowledge that a mere statement of the fundamental facts of right tone production will do much toward inducing a right condition for tone. But I know, too, that immediate results depend upon immediate and faithful putting into practice of the principles set forth. A little practice every day will work swift wonders with the voice. And so, in leaving this phase of the training, I commend you to Ellen Terry's watchword, infinite pains. When it means, as it does in pursuing this ideal, that we must be on guard every waking instant, for a time. When it means a watch set, for a time, upon every organ involved in expression, lips, teeth, tongue, jaw, mouth, throat, chest, diaphragm, and all the muscles governing these organs. When it means a watch set, for a time, upon one's every thought and emotion, lest it make false demands upon the sensitive instruments of their expression, then it becomes a daring device indeed to wear upon one's crest. Let us not hesitate to carve it there, when we realize that to follow it means culture, true culture, the culture which can only come through control and command of one's self. End of Part 2, Chapter 4. Chapter 1 of The Speaking Voice, Principles of Training, Simplified and Condensed, by Katherine Jewell Everts. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Part 3, Studies in the Vocal Interpretation of Literature. Chapter 1, The Law of Approach. We turn now to a series of studies in vocal interpretation, based for convenience upon the analysis of various literary forms, beginning with the essay and the fable, passing through the lyric to the didactic poem, through the short story to the epic poem, and finally through the dramatic monologue to the play. I have said that each of these forms makes its distinctive demand upon the voice of the interpreter. Before analysing the particular form to determine the nature of that demand, let us consider the law of approach in entering upon the interpretation of any piece of literature, regardless of its form. Let us consider the relation of the reader to his text and to his auditor. What should be my aim in reading aloud to you? Should it not be to convey to your mind as simply, clearly, and convincingly as possible the thought of the author? Yes, but I think the following statement of our relation is a little more comprehensive. As an interpreter of literature in any form, I must become a pure medium between the mind of the author and the mind of the auditor. In a final analysis, I, the interpreter, must be a pure medium between life and your soul. I have said that the only excuse for the existence of a reader is that he should be an interpreter. I should have said an interpreter of life through literature. Let me illustrate. With a sense of protest, I had presented a play I loved to an audience with which I felt little sympathy. By chance there was in that audience one of our best teachers and critics. After my recital I sought his criticism. Beginning, as the true critic always should, with a noting of some point of power, he said, "I congratulate you upon your illumined moments, but they are too infrequent. You must multiply them." "What do you mean by my illumined moments?" I asked. "The moments when you do not get between your audience and the thought you are uttering. The moments when you become a revealer of life to them. Your attitude toward your audience is not sustained in the simplicity and clearness of some of its moments. You suddenly ring down the curtain in the middle of the scene. That spoils the scene, you know. You seem to feel a revolt against the giving of your confidence to the audience, and thereupon you immediately shut them away. You become conscious of yourself, and we, the audience, lose the vision and become conscious of you and the way you are reading or reciting or acting." Then he added, "Adelaide Neilson at first had illumined moments in her playing of Juliet. But finally her impersonation became one piece of illumination." That delightful teacher, reader, and critic, the late Mr. Howard Ticknor, suggested the same ideal in comparing a Juliet of to-day with Miss Neilson's Juliet. "When Miss Blank is on the balcony," he said, "you hear all around you, 'How lovely she looks! Isn't that robe dear? How beautiful her voice is!' When Miss Neilson lived that little minute, a breathless people prayed with Juliet, 'I would not for the world they found thee here,' and sighed with Romeo, 'Oh, blessed, blessed night! I am afeard being in night all this is but a dream.' Miss Neilson was Juliet. They, the audience, lived with these lovers 1 hour of lyric rapture, and could never again be quite so commonplace in their attitude toward the deathless passion. They may not now remember Adelaide Neilson, but they remember that story, and for ever carry a new vision of life and love, because the actress lost herself in the life of the play. She did not exploit her personality and let it stand between the audience and the drama. That is it. If we would be artists, and there is not one among us who would not be an artist, we must cease to put our little selves in front of our messages. In the home, in the office, in the houses of our friends, in the schoolroom, on the platform, on the stage, let us be simple, natural, sincere. Let us lay aside our mannerisms. Let us seek to know and reveal life. Then shall we be remembered, not for a queer way of combing our hair, or lifting our eyes, or using our hands, or shrugging our shoulders, but for some revelation of truth or of beauty which we have brought to a community. When some one says to you, the reader or actress, "I shall never forget the way you raised your eyebrow at that point," don't stop to reply, but fly to your study and read the lines at that point, over and over, with level brows, until you understand the meaning and can express the thought so effectively by a lift of your voice that you no longer need the help of your eyebrow. Every gesture, every tone, must call attention, not to itself, but to the hidden meaning of the author. It must illumine the text of the character portrayed. Then, with this attitude, which can only be described as selfless, let us enter upon our interpretative study of special forms. I have said that each form makes its particular demand and appeal. If it is an essay that I am to read to you, the direct and fundamental appeal is to the mind, and the demand upon me, the reader, is for clear, concise thinking, revealed through unerring emphasis and definite, purposeful inflection. So read, it will inevitably persuade you to some readjustment of your ideas, your values, your discriminations, or it will strengthen you in convictions you already hold. If it is a fable that I am to interpret, the appeal is to the fancy. The demand upon my voice is for subtle lights and shades of tone, and a mastery of swift changes in inflection. If read as a fable should be read, it will leave you less serious in your attitude toward your neighbour's harmless foibles, and less critical of his failings. If it is a short story, the demand upon me is for a sustained vitality of tone and temper, in order that I may carry you with unflagging interest through some new or old experience, and show you how to meet, or how not to meet, certain crises in life. If it is a lyric, sonnet, ballad, psalm, ode, or elegy, its fundamental appeal is to emotion, and its demand upon me is for a mastery of tone colour, a sense of rhythm, and the power to suggest a background of musical sound. So read, it will add to your power to forgive, pity, endure, forbear, understand, and love. If it is an epic poem concerned with the deeds of heroes and heroines, its demand is for each and all of the qualities already noted. And a right interpretation, through a just use of these qualities, will add to your courage and skill and foresight. If it is a dramatic monologue, a further demand is made upon me for character identification. I must lend myself to the spirit of the speaker. I must let him speak to you through me. If I present the monologue in the right spirit, you will understand a certain type of person better. Finally, if it is a play that I am presenting, I must identify myself not with one character, but with several. I must be so volatile in voice, body, and mind that the transition from character to character will not interrupt the movement of the play. If I present a drama thus powerfully, It will make you see more clearly the relations of men and events, and give you a truer understanding of life. In turning now to a particular study of the particular form, we must assume that we have mastered the first steps in vocal training, that our instruments are in tune and so ready for use, and that we have acquired a more or less efficient vocal vocabulary. We are now to use the tuned instrument and its acquired vocabulary in interpreting first the essay. End of Part 3, Chapter 1. Chapter 2 of The Speaking Voice, Principles of Training Simplified and Condensed, by Katherine Jewell Everts. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 2, The Essay. Why do we choose the essay for our first study in vocal analysis? Because a fault fundamental to all other faults in tone production and vocal expression rises from a failure to think clearly. The appeal of the essay is primarily an intellectual appeal. It demands concentration of the mind upon its thought to make it your own, and clear and concise utterance of its phrases to convey that thought to another. To really grasp and adequately present a philosophical essay involves mental discipline similar to that required in solving a mathematical problem. I have taken my examples for analysis from Emerson, because Emerson's almost every paragraph is an essay in miniature. In printing extracts from this source, we feel no sense of incompleteness. Let us read this passage from experience. To finish the moment, to find the journey's end in every step of the road, to live the greatest number of good hours, is wisdom. It is not the part of men, but of fanatics, or of mathematicians, if you will, to say that, the shortness of life considered, it is not worth caring whether for so short a duration we were sprawling in want or sitting high. Since our office is with moments, let us husband them. 5 minutes of to-day are worth as much to me as 5 minutes in the next millennium. Let us be poised and wise and our own to-day. I settle myself ever the firmer in the creed that we should not postpone and refer and wish, but do broad justice where we are, by whomsoever we deal with, accepting our actual companions and circumstances, however humble or odious, as the mystic officials to whom the universe has delegated its whole pleasure for us. If you do not think your way through this paragraph clearly, concisely, logically, intensely, when you read it aloud, your voice will betray you. In what way? Your tone will lack resonance, your speech will lack precision, your pitch will be monotonous, your touch will be uncertain, your inflections will be indefinite. Your reading will be unconvincing, because it will fail in lucidity and variety. In approaching this passage, let us study first the question of proper emphasis. What is emphasis? The dictionaries tell us that in delivery it is a special stress of the voice on a given word. But we must use it in a broader sense than this. To emphasize a word is not merely to put a special stress of the voice upon that word. Such an attack might only make the word conspicuous, and so defeat the aim of true emphasis. True emphasis is the art of voicing the words in a phrase so that they shall assume a right relation to each other, and so related, best suggest the thought of which they are the symbols. I do not emphasize one word in a phrase and not the others. I simply vary my stress upon each word in order to gain the proper perspective for the whole sentence. Just so, in a picture, I make one object stand out and others fall into the background by drawing or painting them in proper relations to each other. I may use any or all of the elements of vocal expression to give that proper relation of values to the words in a single phrase. I may pause, change my pitch, vary my inflection, and alter my tone color in order to give a single word its full value. Let us try experiments in emphasis with some isolated sentences before analyzing the longer passage. Here is one of Robert Louis Stevenson's beautifully wrought periods. Every man has a sane spot somewhere. Let us vary vocally the relative values of the words in this sentence, and study the effect upon the character of the thought. Let us look upon the statement as a theme for discussion. With a pause before the second word, man, a lift of the voice on that word, a whimsical turn of the tone, and a significant inflection, we may convert an innocent statement of fact into an incendiary question for debate on the comparative sanity of the sexes. A plea for endless faith and charity becomes a backhanded criticism of women. Now let us read the sentence giving it its true meaning. Every man has a sane spot somewhere. Let your voice make of the statement a plea by dwelling a bit on the first word and again on the last word. Hyphenate the first two words. They really stand for one idea. Compound also the words sane and spot. Lift them as a single word above the rest of the sentence. Now put somewhere a little higher still above the level of the rest of the sentence. So only have we the true import of this group of words. Every man has a sane spot somewhere. Analyze the rest of these sentences from Stevenson in the same way, and experiment with them vocally. That is never a bad wind that blows where we want to go. For truth that is suppressed by friends is the readiest weapon of the enemy. Some strand of our own misdoing is involved in every quarrel. Drama is the poetry of conduct, romance the poetry of circumstance. You cannot run away from a weakness. You must sometime fight it out or perish. And if that be so, why not now, and where you stand? An aim in life is the only fortune worth the finding, and it is not to be found in foreign lands, but in the heart itself. The world was not made for us. It was made for 10 millions of me, all different from each other and from us. There's no royal road. We just have to sclamber and tumble. Now, once more, and this time with detailed analysis, let us study the passage from Experience. Let us first consider for a moment some of the words which make this passage powerful. Finish, journey's end, good hours, wisdom, fanatics, mathematicians, sprawling in want, sitting high, firmer, poised, postpone, justice, humble, odious, mystic, pleasure. When spoken with a keen sense of its inherent meaning, with full appreciation of its form, and with delight in moulding it, how efficient each one of these words becomes! When shall we as a people learn reverence for the words which make up our language? Reverence that shall make us ashamed to mangle words, offering as our excuse that we are Westerners or Southerners, or from New York or New England or Indiana. The clear-cut thought calls for the clean-cut speech. Let us say these words over and over until they assume full value. And now we pass from words to groups of words. The mind and the tone must move progressively through the first three phrases which make up this first sentence. To finish the moment, to find the journey's end in every step of the road, to live the greatest number of good hours, is wisdom. The phrases must be held together by an almost imperceptible suspension and upward reach of the voice at the end of each group of words, and yet each phrase must be allowed to be momentarily complete. Read the sentence, making each phrase a conclusion, and then again letting each phrase look forward to the next. Each phrase is really a substantive, looking forward to its predicate through a second substantive which is a little more vital than the first, and again through a third substantive which is a little more vital than either of the other two. Bring this out in reading the sentence. The next sentence depends for its significance upon your contrasting inflections of the three words men, fanatics, and mathematicians, and again upon your sympathetic inflection of sprawling in want and sitting high. It is not the part of men, but of fanatics, or of mathematicians, if you will, to say that, the shortness of life considered, it is not worth caring whether for so short a duration we were sprawling in want or sitting high. In your utterance of these words, can you make men men, and fanatics fanatics, and consign mathematicians to the cold corner of human affairs designed for them? Can you so inflect sprawling in want and sitting high as to suggest a swamp and a mountain top, or a frog and an angel? Let your voice leap from the swamp to the mountain top. Let it climb. Now comes the swift, concise, admonitory sentence: since our office is with moments, let us husband them. Pause before you speak the word husband, and husband it. 5 minutes of to-day are worth as much to me as 5 minutes in the next millennium. Make 5 minutes of to-day one word, and accent the last syllable thus: 5 minutes of to-day. Let the tone retard and take its time on the last 7 words. Now poise your tone for the next sentence. Let us be poised and wise and our own to-day. The paragraph closes with a more complex statement of the theme. Let your voice search out the meaning. Let it settle down into the conclusion, and utter it convincingly. Give a definite touch to the words which I shall put in italics. I settle myself ever firmer in the creed that we should not postpone and refer and wish, but do broad justice where we are, by whomsoever we deal with, accepting our actual companions and circumstances, however humble or odious, as the mystic officials to whom the universe has dedicated its whole pleasure for us. This is a suggestive analysis for the vocal interpretation of the essay. The examples which follow are for you to analyze in the same way, but with your voice in your study, not with a pencil on paper. There is a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide, that he must take himself for better for worse as his portion, that though the wide universe is full of good, no kernel of nourishing corn can come to him but through his toil bestowed on that plot of ground which is given to him to till. The power which resides in him is new in nature, and none but he knows what that is which he can do, nor does he know until he has tried. What I must do is all that concerns me, not what the people think. This rule, equally arduous in actual and in intellectual life, may serve for the whole distinction between greatness and meanness. It is the harder because you will always find those who think they know what is your duty better than you know it. It is easy in the world to live after the world's opinion. It is easy in solitude to live after our own. But the great man is he who in the midst of the crowd keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude. Self-reliance. Happy is the house that shelters a friend. It might well be built like a festal bower or arch to entertain him a single day. Happier if he know the solemnity of that relation and honour its law. It is no idle bond, no holiday engagement. He who offers himself a candidate for that covenant comes up, like an Olympian, to the great games where the firstborn of the world are the competitors. He proposes himself for contest where time, want, danger are in the lists, and he alone is victor who has truth enough in his constitution to preserve the delicacy of his beauty from the wear and tear of all these. The gifts of fortune may be present or absent, but all the hap in that contest depends on intrinsic nobleness and the contempt of trifles. There are two elements that go to the composition of friendship, each so sovereign that I can detect no superiority in either, no reason why either should be first named. One is truth. A friend is a person with whom I may be sincere. Before him I may think aloud. The other element of friendship is tenderness. We are holden to men by every sort of tie. By blood, by pride, by fear, by hope, by lucre, by lust, by hate, by admiration, by every circumstance and badge and trifle, but we can scarce believe that so much character can subsist in another as to draw us by love. Can another be so blessed and we so pure that we can offer him tenderness? When a man becomes dear to me, I have touched the goal of fortune. Friendship. A gentleman makes no noise. A lady is serene. The person who screams, or uses the superlative degree, or converses with heat, puts whole drawing-rooms to flight. If you wish to be loved, love measure. Manners. The reason why we feel one man's presence and do not feel another's is as simple as gravity. Truth is the summit of being. Justice is the application of it to affairs. All individual natures stand in a scale according to the purity of this element in them. The will of the pure runs down from them into other natures, as water runs down from a higher into a lower vessel. This natural force is no more to be withstood than any other natural force. We can drive a stone upward for a moment into the air, but it is yet true that all stones will forever fall, and whatever instances can be quoted of unpunished theft, or of a lie which somebody credited, justice must prevail, and it is the privilege of truth to make itself believed. Character is this moral order, seen through the medium of an individual nature. An individual is an encloser. Time and space, liberty and necessity, truth and thought, are left at large no longer. Now the universe is a close or pound. All things exist in the man tinged with the manners of his soul. A healthy soul stands united with the just and the true, as the magnet arranges itself with the pole, so that he stands to all beholders like a transparent object betwixt them and the sun, and whoso journeys toward the sun journeys toward that person. He is thus the medium of the highest influence to all who are not on the same level. Thus, men of character are the conscience of the society to which they belong. Character. In proposing further material for use in establishing this step in vocal interpretation, I shall make a suggestion to the public school teacher of the work only. The problem here is simpler than it seems to be at first. Let the student bring to his class in expression his textbook in any other subject, preferably nature study, science, or history. 3 things can be accomplished by this plan. The history or science lesson will be mastered in half the time it might otherwise take. A right habit of study will be established, and the first step in learning to read aloud will be accomplished. This solves the much vexed question of a textbook in reading, for the time at least. End of Part 3, Chapter 2. Chapter 3 of The Speaking Voice, Principles of Training, Simplified and Condensed by Katherine Jewell Everts. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 3, The Fable. In turning in our interpretative study from the essay to the lyric, let us pause for a moment and seek relaxation with the fable. Do you not agree with me that the reading of the fable, whether to children or grown-ups, should be a bit whimsical in tone? Perhaps I only mean that I should choose to have my whimsical friend read fables and fairy stories to me. What is a fable? A story in which, by the imagined dealings of men with animals or mere things, or by the supposed doings of these alone, useful lessons are taught. It is the presence of the lesson that must be offset by the whimsical tone. A moral rubbed in is like an overdose of certain kinds of medicine. A little cures, too much may kill. I print for your use at this point 3 of Aesop's fables. The Lion and the Mouse. Once, when a lion was asleep, a little mouse began running up and down upon him. This soon wakened the lion, who placed his huge paw upon him and opened his big jaws to swallow him. "Pardon, O King!" cried the little mouse. "Forgive me this time. I shall never forget it. Who knows but what I may be able to do you a turn some of these days?" The lion was so tickled at the idea of the mouse being able to help him that he lifted up his paw and let him go. Some time after, the lion was caught in a trap, and the hunters, who desired to carry him alive to the King, tied him to a tree while they went in search of a wagon to carry him on. Just then the little mouse happened to pass by, and seeing the sad plight in which the lion was, went up to him and soon gnawed away the ropes that bound the King of the Beasts. "Was I not right?" said the little mouse. Little friends may prove great friends. The Wind and the Sun. The Wind and the Sun were disputing which was the stronger. Suddenly they saw a traveller coming down the road, and the Sun said, "I see a way to decide our dispute. Whichever of us can cause that traveller to take off his cloak shall be regarded as the stronger. You begin." So the Sun retired behind a cloud, and the Wind began to blow as hard as he could upon the traveller. But the harder he blew, the more closely did the traveller wrap his cloak round him, till at last the Wind had to give up in despair. Then the Sun came out, and shone in all his glory upon the traveller, who soon found it too hot to walk with his cloak on. Kindness effects more than severity. The Crow and the Pitcher. A crow, half dead with thirst, came upon a pitcher which had once been full of water. But when the crow put his beak into the mouth of the pitcher, he found that only very little water was left in it, and that he could not reach far enough down to get at it. He tried and he tried, but at last had to give up in despair. Then a thought came to him, and he took a pebble and dropped it into the pitcher. Then he took another pebble and dropped it into the pitcher. Then he took another pebble and dropped that into the pitcher. Then he took another pebble and dropped that into the pitcher. Then he took another pebble and dropped that into the pitcher. Then he took another pebble and dropped that into the pitcher. At last, he saw the water mount up near him, and after casting in a few more pebbles, he was able to quench his thirst and save his life. Little by little does the trick. I shall not analyze these fables for you. You can hardly fail in right use of emphasis. Your only danger lies in making your touch too heavy. Let me speak of one point in the fable of the crow and the pitcher. How shall we avoid monotony in reading the lines beginning, "Then he took another pebble and dropped it into the pitcher"? This line is followed by one in which but 2 words are changed, and then by a line with but 1 change, and then by 3 lines with no change at all. We must depend upon varying the emphasis and movement. Try this treatment. Give another the particular stress in reading the first line. Pause at the close of the line, as if to study the effect of the pebble. In the next line, that, of course, takes the emphasis. Pause before the word and give it a salient stress. The movement of the voice through these 2 lines has been deliberate. On the next line, hasten it a little, and make the pause at the close of the line shorter. With the 4th line, let the tone settle down to work. Give each of the first 5 words equal stress. With the 5th and last line, let us feel that you may go on forever, and surprise us with a very short pause and a joyful stress upon "at last, at last." And don't fail to let the enthusiasm of your tone give us the full sense of relief which comes with the mounting of the water, and the delight in the conclusion, "He was able to quench his thirst and save his life." And now, most whimsically, let us voice the moral, "Little by little does the trick." End of Part 3, Chapter 3. Chapter 4 of The Speaking Voice. Principles of Training, Simplified and Condensed, by Katherine Jewell Everts. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 4. Lyric Poetry. We turn now in our study from didactic prose to lyric poetry. We do so because the direct appeal of a lyric poem is to the emotions. The nature of the demand upon the interpreter changes, and new power is developed along new lines. While literature, whatever its form, must compel the reader's thought, its predominant appeal in poetry must be to emotion. In our study of technique, we learned that tone color was the vocal language of emotion. So the vocal interpretation of poetry, whether lyric, pastoral, or didactic, demands above all a mastery of this element of our vocabulary. The reading of poetry also demands a sense of rhythm, meter, and rhyme. Can this sense be developed? Yes, it should be a part of the training of every child's soul. How can it be accomplished? Read poetry to him and with him. We shall take for our study of the lyric Shelley's Ode to a Skylark. I shall analyze in detail only the first 5 stanzas. Hail to thee, blithe spirit! Bird thou never wert, that from heaven or near it pourest thy full heart in profuse strains of unpremeditated art. Higher still and higher from the earth thou springest, Like a cloud of fire the blue deep thou wingest, and singing still dost soar, and soaring ever singest. In the golden lightning of the sunken sun, o'er which clouds are brightening, thou dost float and run, like an unbodied joy whose race is just begun. The pale purple even melts around thy flight, like a star of heaven in the broad daylight. Thou art unseen, but yet I hear thy shrill delight. Keen as are the arrows of that silver sphere, whose intense lamp narrows in the white dawn clear, until we hardly see, we feel that it is there. How shall we create an atmosphere for the reading of these verses? How can we catch the spirit of the creator of them? Shall we ever feel ready to voice that first line? Do you know Jules Breton's picture, The Lark? Do you love it? Go, then, and stand before it for an hour, actually or in imagination. Something of the spirit which informs that lovely child, lifting her eyes, her head in an attitude of listening rapture, must steal over you as you stand before her. I know her power. I have tested it. In reading The Skylark with a class of boys and girls from 12 to 14 years old, I tried the experiment. I happened to have with me a beautiful copy of Breton's picture. I took it to the classroom. I wrote on the blackboard verses of the poem, and hung the picture over them. The picture taught them to read the poem. The eyes of the girl became their teacher. I tried the experiment with a private pupil in my studio, with a somewhat different result. I had told her to bring a copy of Shelley's poems to her next lesson. "Do you know the Ode to a Skylark?" I asked. "Yes," she said. A copy of Breton's picture hung on the wall. "Before you open your book, look at the picture," I said. She obeyed. Her expression, always radiant, deepened its radiance. "Do you know what the girl is doing?" I asked. "Oh, yes, she is listening to the Skylark." "How do you know?" "I have heard the Skylark sing." "I never have," I said. "Read the poem to me." Now, when I read the Skylark, I see the girl in Jules Breton's picture, but I hear the voice of my English pupil. But if our apperceptive background fails to furnish a memory of the identical sight and sound for our inspiring, it at least holds bird notes and bird flights of great beauty, and we must call upon these for the impulse to voice Shelley's apostrophe. Hail to thee, blithe spirit! Bird thou never wert, that from heaven or near it pourest thy full heart in profuse strains of unpremeditated art. An early autumn number of the Atlantic Monthly for 1907 published a poem by Mr. Ridgely Torrance, entitled The Lesser Children, or A Threnody at the Hunting Season. The poem is worthy, in sentiment and structure, to be set beside Shelley's Ode. Let us compare with the picture which the 18th century poet has given us this one from our modern songwriter. Who has not seen in the high gulf of light what, lower, was a bird, but now is moored and altered quite into an island of unshaded joy? To whom the mate below upon the bough shouts once, and brings him from his high employ, yet speeding, he forgot not of the cloud where he from glory sprang and burned aloud, but took a little of the day, a little of the coloured sky, and of the joy that would not stay he wove a song that cannot die. Now let us study closely the first verse of the older poem. Spirit and voice must soar in the first line. Hail to thee, blithe spirit! The two words hail and blithe are swift winged words. Let them fly, give them their wings. Let them do all they are intended to do. The rhythm of the whole poem is aspiring. Reverence the rhythm, but keep the thought floating clear above it in the second line. Bird thou never wert. With the next two lines the tone must gather head, to be poured forth in the last line, in profuse strains of unpremeditated art. Let us make another comparative study. Set on the other side of this picture Lowell's description of the little bird in his prologue to Sir Launfal's Vision. The little bird sits at his door in the sun, atilt like a blossom among the leaves, and lets his illumined being o'errun with the deluge of summer it receives. The second verse of the Skylark demands a still higher flight of imagination and tone. Let us try it. Higher still and higher from the earth thou springest, like a cloud of fire the blue deep thou wingest, and singing still dost soar, and soaring ever singest. Again all the words rise and float. Sing them over. Higher, higher, springest, fire, wingest, singing, soar, soaring, singest. The reader must feel himself poised for flight in every word of the first three verses. Why does the poet say cloud of fire? What is the colour of the skylark? And now the tone, which has been of a radiant hue through these three verses, must soften a little in the first three lines of the next verse. The pale purple even melts around thy flight. Glow gold again in the last three lines. Like a star of heaven in the broad daylight, thou art unseen, and yet I hear thy shrill delight. And become the white of an incandescent light in the next verse. Keen as are the arrows of that silver sphere, whose intense lamp narrows in the white dawn clear, until we hardly see, we feel that it is there. Do you not see that the secret of its beauty lies, for vocal interpretation, in the colour of tone and in the inflection of the words? Say unseen, dwelling on the second syllable. Shrill delight, directing shrill over the head of delight. Keen, making it cleave the air like an arrow. Silver sphere, suggesting a moonlit path across water. Intense and narrows, letting the tone recede into the white dawn. See, with a vanishing stress, and feel, with a deepening note carried to the end. So we might go on through the 21 stanzas which make up the poem. Please analyze undirected the next two verses. All the earth and air with thy voice is loud, as when night is bare, from one lonely cloud the moon rains out her beams, and heaven is overflowed. What thou art we know not, what is most like thee? From rainbow clouds there flow not drops so bright to see, as from thy presence showers a rain of melody. In reading the first lines of the next 4 verses, we must avoid monotony. Like a poet hidden in the light of thought, singing hymns unbidden, till the world is wrought to sympathy with hopes and fears it heeded not. Like a high-born maiden in a palace tower, soothing her love-laden soul in secret hour with music sweet as love which overflows her bower. Like a glow-worm golden in a dell of dew, scattering unbeholden its aerial hue among the flowers and grass which screen it from the view. Like a rose embowered in its own green leaves, by warm winds deflowered, till the scent it gives makes faint with too much sweet these heavy-winged thieves. Vary, if only for variety, the pitch on which you begin each of these first lines. Let the first 3 words of the 8th verse, like a poet, ascend in pitch. Keep the voice level in the first line of the 9th verse, like a high-born maiden. Let the pitch fall in the first words of the 10th stanza, like a glow-worm golden. And again keep the tone level on the first line of the next stanza, like a rose embowered. I leave to you the analysis of the rest of the poem. Sound of vernal showers on the twinkling grass, rain-awakened flowers, all that ever was joyous and clear and fresh, thy music doth surpass. Teach us, sprite or bird, what sweet thoughts are thine. I have never heard praise of love or wine that panteth forth a flood of rapture so divine. Chorus hymeneal or triumphal chaunt matched with thine would be all but an empty vaunt, a thing wherein we feel there is some hidden want. What objects are the fountains of thy happy strain? What field or waves or mountains, what shapes of sky or plain? What love of thine own kind, what ignorance of pain? With thy clear keen joyance languor cannot be, shadow of annoyance never came near thee. Thou lovest, but ne'er knew love's sad satiety. Waking or asleep, thou of death must deem things more true and deep than we mortals dream, or how could thy notes flow in such a crystal stream? We look before and after, and pine for what is not. Our sincerest laughter with some pain is fraught. Our sweetest songs are those that tell of saddest thought. Yet if we could scorn hate and pride and fear, if we were things born not to shed a tear, I know not how thy joy we ever should come near. Better than all measures of delightful sound, better than all treasures that in books are found, thy skill to poet were, thou scorner of the ground. Teach me half the gladness that thy brain must know, such harmonious madness from my lips would flow, the world should listen then, as I am listening now. P.B. Shelley. The following selections from lyric poetry are designed to give your voice exercise in the expression of varied emotions. I understand that Dr. Curry makes the reading of joyous lyrics an important part of his voice programme. Hunting Song. Waken, lords and ladies gay, on the mountain dawns the day. All the jolly chase is here, with hawk and horse and hunting spear. Hounds are in their couples yelling, hawks are whistling, horns are knelling. Merrily, merrily mingle they. Waken, lords and ladies gay. Waken, lords and ladies gay. The mist has left the mountain grey, springlets in the dawn are steaming, diamonds on the brake are gleaming, and foresters have busy been to track the buck in thicket green. Now we come to chant our lay, waken, lords and ladies gay. Waken, lords and ladies gay, to the greenwood haste away. We can show you where he lies, fleet of foot and tall of size. We can show the marks he made when 'gainst the oak his antlers frayed. You shall see him brought to bay. Waken, lords and ladies gay. Louder, louder chant the lay. Waken, lords and ladies gay. Tell them youth and mirth and glee run a course as well as we. Time, stern huntsman, who can baulk, stanch as hound and fleet as hawk? Think of this, and rise with day, gentle lords and ladies gay. Sir W. Scott. It was a lover and his lass, with a hey and a ho and a hey nonny no, that o'er the green cornfield did pass in the spring time, the only pretty ring time, when birds do sing, hey ding a ding, sweet lovers love the spring. Between the acres of the rye these pretty country folks would lie. This carol they began that hour, how that life was but a flower. And therefore take the present time, with a hey and a ho and a hey nonny no, for love is crowned with the prime in spring time, the only pretty ring time, when birds do sing, hey ding a ding, sweet lovers love the spring. W. Shakespeare. Pack, clouds, away, and welcome day. With night we banish sorrow. Sweet air blow soft, mount larks aloft, to give my love good morrow. Wings from the wind to please her mind, notes from the lark I'll borrow. Bird, prune thy wing, nightingale, sing, to give my love good morrow. To give my love good morrow, notes from them both I'll borrow. Wake from thy nest, robin redbreast, sing birds in every furrow, and from each hill let music shrill give my fair love good morrow. Blackbird and thrush in every bush, stare linnet and cock sparrow. You pretty elves, among yourselves sing my fair love good morrow. To give my love good morrow, sing birds in every furrow. T. Hayward. Memory. This and the following poem appear by special permission of Houghton Mifflin Co., the publishers of Mr. Aldrich's poems. My mind lets go 1,000 things, like dates of wars and deaths of kings, and yet recalls the very hour 'twas noon by yonder village tower, and on the last blue noon in May, the wind came briskly up this way, crisping the brook beside the road, then, pausing here, set down its load of pine scents, and shook listlessly 2 petals from that wild rose tree. Enamoured architect of airy rhyme. Enamoured architect of airy rhyme, build as thou wilt, heed not what each man says. Good souls, but innocent of dreamers' ways, will come and marvel why thou wastest time. Others, beholding how thy turrets climb 'twixt theirs and heaven, will hate thee all thy days. But most beware of those who come to praise. O wonder smith! O worker in sublime and heaven-sent dreams! Let art be all in all. Build as thou wilt, unspoiled by praise or blame. Build as thou wilt, and as thy light is given. Then, if at last the airy structure fall, dissolve, and vanish, take thyself no shame. They fail, and they alone, who have not striven. Thomas Bailey Aldrich. Love in the Winds. From Along the Trail, by Richard Hovey. Copyright 1898 by Small, Maynard & Co., Duffield & Company, successors. When I am standing on a mountain crest, or hold the tiller in the dashing spray, my love of you leaps foaming in my breast, shouts with the winds, and sweeps to their foray. My heart bounds with the horses of the sea, and plunges in the wild ride of the night, flaunts in the teeth of tempest the large glee that rides out fate, and welcomes gods to fight. O love, I laugh aloud for love of you, glad that our love is fellow to rough weather. No fretful orchid hot-housed from the dew, but hale and hearty as the highland heather, rejoicing in the wind that stings and thrills, comrades of ocean, playmate of the hills. Richard Hovey. Candlemas, by permission of Houghton Mifflin Co. Oh, hearken, all ye little weeds that lie beneath the snow, so low, dear hearts, in poverty so low. The sun hath risen for royal deeds, a valiant wind the vanguard leads. Now quicken ye, lest unborn seeds before ye rise and blow. O furry living things, a-dream on winter's drowsy breast, how rest ye there, how softly, safely rest! Arise and follow where a gleam of wizard gold unbinds the stream, and all the woodland windings seem with sweet expectance blest. My birds, come back! The hollow sky is weary for your note. Sweet throat, come back! O liquid, mellow throat! Ere May's soft minions here would fly, shame on ye laggards, to deny the brooding breast, the sun-bright eye, the tawny shining coat. Alice Brown. She was a phantom of delight when first she gleamed upon my sight, a lovely apparition sent to be a moment's ornament. Her eyes as stars of twilight fair, like twilight too her dusky hair, but all things else about her drawn from Maytime and the cheerful dawn, a dancing shape, an image gay, to haunt, to startle, and waylay. I saw her upon nearer view a spirit, yet a woman too, her household motions light and free, and steps of virgin liberty. A countenance in which did meet sweet records, promises as sweet. A creature not too bright or good for human nature's daily food, for transient sorrows, simple wiles, praise, blame, love, kisses, tears, and smiles. And now I see with eye serene the very pulse of the machine, a being breathing thoughtful breath, a traveller between life and death, the reason firm, the temperate will, endurance, foresight, strength, and skill. A perfect woman, nobly planned to warn, to comfort, and command, and yet a spirit still, and bright with something of an angel light. W. Wordsworth. Nonsense lyrics. Topsy-turvy world. If the butterfly courted the bee, and the owl the porcupine, if churches were built in the sea, and 3 times 1 was 9, if the pony rode his master, if the buttercups ate the cows, If the cats had the dire disaster to be worried, sir, by the mouse; if mamma, sir, sold the baby to a gipsy for half a crown; if a gentleman, sir, was a lady, the world would be upside down. If any or all of these wonders should ever come about, I should not consider them blunders, for I should be inside out. Chorus. Baa, baa, Blackwool, have you any sheep? Yes, sir, a packful. Creep, mouse, creep. 24 little maids hanging out the pie. Out jumped the honey pot. Guy Fawkes, Guy. Cross latch, sit and spin the fire. When the pie was opened, the bird was on the briar. William Brighty Rands. I saw a new world. I saw a new world in my dream, where all the folks alike did seem. There was no child, there was no mother, there was no change, there was no other. For everything was same, the same. There was no praise, there was no blame, there was neither need nor help for it, there was nothing fitting or unfit. Nobody laughed, nobody wept, none grew weary, so none slept. There was nobody born and nobody wed, this world was a world of the living dead. I longed to hear the time clock strike in the world where people were all alike. I hated same, I hated for ever, I longed to say neither, or even never. I longed to mend, I longed to make, I longed to give, I longed to take, I longed for a change whatever came after. I longed for crying, I longed for laughter. At last I heard the time clock boom, and woke from my dream in my little room. With a smile on her lips my mother was nigh, and I heard the baby crow and cry. And I thought to myself, how nice it is for me to live in a world like this, where things can happen, and clocks can strike, and none of the people are made alike. Where love wants this, and pain wants that, where all our hearts want tit for tat in the jumbles we make with our heads and our hands, in a world that nobody understands, but with work and hope, and the right to call upon Him who sees it and knows us all. William Brighty Rands. Besides the rivers Arve and Arveiron, which have their sources in the foot of Mount Blanc, 5 conspicuous torrents rush down its sides, and within a few paces of the glaciers the Gentiana Major grows in immense numbers, with its flowers of loveliest blue. Hymn before sunrise in the Vale of Chamounix. Hast thou a charm to stay the morning star in his steep course? So long he seems to pause on thy bald awful head, O sovereign Blanc. The Arve and Arveiron at thy base rave ceaselessly, but thou, most awful form, risest from forth thy silent sea of pines, how silently! Around thee and above, deep is the air, and dark, substantial, black, an ebon mass. Methinks thou piercest it as with a wedge. But when I look again, it is thine own calm home, thy crystal shrine, thy habitation from eternity. O dread and silent mount! I gazed upon thee, till thou, still present to the bodily sense, didst vanish from my thought. Entranced in prayer, I worshipped the invisible alone. Yet, like some sweet beguiling melody so sweet we know not we are listening to it, thou the meanwhile wast blending with my thought, yea, with my life and life's own secret joy, till the dilating soul, enwrapt, transfused into the mighty vision passing, there as in her natural form swelled vast to heaven. Awake, my soul! Not only passive praise thou owest, not alone these swelling tears, mute thanks and secret ecstasy. Awake, voice of sweet song! Awake, my heart, awake! Green vales and icy cliffs all join my hymn. Thou first and chief, sole sovereign of the vale, O struggling with the darkness all the night, and visited all night by troops of stars, or when they climb the sky, or when they sink, companion of the morning star at dawn, thyself earth's rosy star, and of the dawn co-herald, wake, O wake, and utter praise! Who sank thy sunless pillars deep in earth? Who filled thy countenance with rosy light? Who made thee parent of perpetual streams? And you, ye 5 wild torrents, fiercely glad, who called you forth from night and utter death? From dark and icy caverns called you forth, down those precipitous black jagged rocks, for ever shattered, and the same for ever. Who gave you your invulnerable life, your strength, your speed, your fury, and your joy, unceasing thunder and eternal foam? And who commanded, and the silence came, here let the billows stiffen and have rest? Ye ice falls, ye that from the mountain's brow adown enormous ravines slope amain, torrents, methinks, that heard a mighty voice and stopped at once amid their maddest plunge, motionless torrents, silent cataracts. Who made you glorious as the gates of heaven beneath the keen full moon? Who bade the sun clothe you with rainbows? Who with living flowers of loveliest blue spread garlands at your feet? God! Let the torrents like a shout of nations answer, and let the ice plains echo, God! God, sing ye meadow streams with gladsome voice, ye pine groves with your soft and soul-like sounds. And they too have a voice, yon piles of snow, and in their perilous fall shall thunder, God! Ye living flowers that skirt the eternal frost, ye wild goats sporting round the eagle's nest, ye eagles, playmates of the mountain storm, ye lightnings, the dread arrows of the clouds, ye signs and wonders of the element, utter forth God, and fill the hills with praise. Thou too, hoar mount, with thy sky-pointing peaks, oft from whose feet the avalanche, unheard, shoots downward glittering through the pure serene into the depth of clouds that veil thy breast. Thou too again, stupendous mountain! Thou that as I raise my head, awhile bowed low in adoration, upward from thy base, slow travelling with dim eyes suffused with tears, solemnly seemest like a vapoury cloud to rise before me. Rise, oh, ever rise! Rise like a cloud of incense from the earth, thou kingly spirit throned among the hills, thou dread ambassador from earth to heaven. Great hierarch, tell thou the silent sky, and tell the stars, and tell yon rising sun, Earth with her 1,000 voices praises God. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Juan's Song from the Spanish Gypsy. Memory, tell to me what is fair past compare in the land of Dubal. Is it spring's lovely things, blossoms white, rosy dight? Then it is Pepita. Summer's crest, red gold tressed, cornflowers peeping under, idle noons, lingering moons, sudden cloud, lightning shroud, sudden rain, quick again smiles where late was thunder, are all these made to please? So too is Pepita. Autumn's prime, apple time, smooth cheek round, heart all sound, is it this you would kiss? Then it is Pepita. You can bring no sweet thing, but my mind still shall find it is my Pepita. Memory says to me, it is she. She is fair past compare in the land of Dubal. Pablo's Song from the Spanish Gypsy. Spring comes hither, buds the rose, roses wither, sweet spring goes. Ojalá would she carry me. Summer soars, wide-winged day, white light pours, flies away. Ojalá would he carry me. Soft winds blow, westward borne, onward go toward the morn. Ojalá would they carry me. Sweet birds sing o'er the graves, then take wing o'er the waves. Ojalá would they carry me. George Eliot. Mr. Gilbert Chesterton tells us that the real Robert Browning of literary history arrived with the dramatic lyrics. In dramatic lyrics, says Mr. Chesterton, Browning discovered the one thing that he could really do better than any one else, the dramatic lyric. The form is absolutely original. He had discovered a new field of poetry, and in the centre of that field he had found himself. The form is new, but it obeys the fundamental law of lyric poetry, and so in our study belongs to this chapter. The new element which the word dramatic suggests makes a new and a somewhat broader demand upon the interpreter. Therefore I have chosen this group of dramatic lyrics from Browning as the material for your final study of this form. My Star. All that I know of a certain star is, it can throw, like the angled spar, now a dart of red, now a dart of blue, till my friends have said they would fain see too my star that dartles the red and the blue. Then it stops like a bird, like a flower hangs furled. They must solace themselves with the Saturn above it. What matter to me if their star is a world? Mine has opened its soul to me, therefore I love it. Cavalier Tunes, Marching Along. Kentish Sir Byng stood for his king, bidding the crop-headed Parliament swing, and pressing a troop unable to stoop, and see the rogues flourish and honest folk droop, marched them along 50 strong, great-hearted gentlemen singing this song. God for King Charles! Pym and such carles to the devil that prompts 'em, their treasonous parles. Cavaliers up! Lips from the cup! Hands from the pasty, nor bite take nor sup till you're marching along, 50 score strong, great-hearted gentlemen singing this song. Hampden to hell and his obsequies knell serve Hazelrig, Fiennes, and young Harry as well. England, good cheer! Rupert is near. Kentish and Loyalists, keep we not here, marching along, 50 score strong, great-hearted gentlemen singing this song? Then God for King Charles! Pym and his snarls to the devil that pricks on such pestilent carles. Hold by the right, you double your might. So onward to Nottingham, fresh for the fight, march we along, 50 score strong, great-hearted gentlemen singing this song. Garden Fancies. The flower's name. Here's the garden she walked across, arm in my arm such a short while since. Hark! now I push its wicket, the moss hinders the hinges and makes them wince. She must have reached this shrub ere she turned, as back with that murmur the wicket swung. For she laid the poor snail, my chance foot spurned, to feed and forget it the leaves among. Down this side of the gravel walk she went, while her robe's edge brushed the box, and here she paused in her gracious talk, to point me a moth on the milk-white phlox. Roses ranged in valiant row, I will never think that she passed you by. She loves you, noble roses, I know, but yonder, see where the rock plants lie. This flower she stopped at, finger on lip, stooped over in doubt as settling its claim, till she gave me, with pride to make no slip, its soft meandering Spanish name. What a name! Was it love or praise? Speech half asleep, or song half awake? I must learn Spanish one of these days, only for that slow sweet name's sake. Roses, if I live and do well, I may bring her one of these days, to fix you fast with as fine a spell, fit you each with his Spanish phrase. But do not detain me now, for she lingers there like sunshine over the ground, and ever I see her soft white fingers searching after the bud she found. Flower, you Spaniard, look that you grow not, stay as you are and be loved for ever. Bud, if I kiss you, 'tis that you blow not. Mind the shut pink mouth opens never, for while it pouts, her fingers wrestle, twinkling the audacious leaves between, till round they turn and down they nestle. Is not the dear mark still to be seen? Where I find her not, beauties vanish; whither I follow her, beauties flee. Is there no method to tell her in Spanish June's twice June since she breathed it with me? Come, bud, show me the least of her traces, treasure my lady's lightest footfall. Ah, you may flout and turn up your faces, roses, you are not so fair after all. Robert Browning. End of Part 3, Chapter 4.